couple of years ago, a young man who had dropped out of William and Mary College, because he was 21, moved into my Zen Center. And after he'd been there for a few weeks, we met in Dokusan. And he told me that he was diagnosed with cancer when he was 17. And that it was the most brilliant 100 days of his life, those days in the hospital. And then he went back to college, and the darkness overwhelmed him. And he fell into a deep depression and began to use drugs. And so he dropped out, and after laying in bed in his parents' house for 6 months and having frequent tests to ascertain the situation with his cancer, he applied to be a resident at Upaya. And last year he's lived there for 2 years, and he's just finishing up his commitment of practice there. Last year he wrote this poem. Oh. Yeah. It's called 100 Days. 100 days. Sometimes a day is a bed with bleach-clean sheets, around which loved ones gather, faces warm and heavy. Sometimes a day is a pain, born deep in the body's channels. The senses empty, not even a sign in the window, and time drips from a rusted faucet. Sometimes a day is a forgetting of who it was you were before the needles and nurses and colorless flesh, before the pain and the bed. My bed. I have known 100 days and more like this. One day, actually as nameless and faceless as before I was born. And I dare not ask for those or that day back, nor wish that they lie fallow amidst some vast acreage awaiting my return. Instead, I consider those whose lives were and are spent in this way, exhausted of reason, empty days and empty vessels, dreaming life, dreaming me. I would dream of the ocean, my feet in dark, wet sand. Now I bring everyone back with me, and we sit together and gaze to the pale blue horizon. This poem is about a journey through sickness and invasion. What was I before the needles? Who was I before the diagnosis? What does time mean as it drips one moment after another from the faucet? And as I move through that valley of the shadow of death, I can see no evil, he says. What would I do? I would dream. And I would invite all those who suffer like me to sit with my feet in the dark, wet sand and to gaze at the blue horizon. He's gone through something. He's gone through something. I said to him right before I left, I said, so-and-so, you've manned up. You've manned up. He's become a man, knowing that he might return to that bed, which is time, but he has a whole other way of lifting into that source, into that suffering. A whole other frame of reference, which is the reference of boundlessness. And I tell you, it's been an incredible journey with him these 2 years, because he was so pure. Had such high spiritual ideals, and he actually became physically ill from his kombucha, and I said, oh my God. And one day he looked at me, he said, I'm done. To be normal is to be like he is, including going through the valley of the shadow of death. And in that valley, we as caregivers and we as people who are facing or will face dying, we have questions that are imponderables, that are looked on by the medical establishment as having a moral and ethical base, but are not clearly understood. And although some of these questions are adjudicated or legally parenthesized, they also have to do with one's personal choice, your capacity to exercise options which the medical establishment is offering you, or your capacity to stay in control of your journey to the extent that is possible without having an institution and scared clinicians force you into a track that you don't feel is your path. So what we'd like to do is to look at some of these questions, but we want to do it a little differently, and that is to break into small groups of around 5, and we ask that you speak very quietly so we can, keep the room right. And I think we decided this morning to start out with the question, do you want to donate your organs? To get the little heart on your driver's license? Or does this feel like something you don't want to do? Good question, huh? So what I'd like to have us do is to come into these 5 councils. This is not about coming up with a solution. We're not looking for consensus. We really want to listen deeply. We want to speak truthfully and constructively what our perspective is. We want to not do an aria. That is to be concise. And we want to be spontaneous, because I have to tell you, I've gone through 5 different opinions about this. Get the heart off my driver's license, put the heart on my driver's license. It's something that has been wonderful to consider. So I would like for you to consider it, honoring the differences in perspective. So the question is, do you want to donate your organs? And if so, why? And if not, why? But go to essence, okay? No, we're not going to write. We're going to do this in small groups, around 5 people in a group. So let's break out now.
Gosh, ever since I found out that you could donate your organs, I've always been really just thrilled that that's a possibility. So I'm just sort of a less than 2 minutes, and I'm sort of a yes. I'm a yes.
And I've thought about it, and I wouldn't necessarily receive a donated organ myself, depending on the situation in my life, but I feel that if there are people that want to use my organs, I'm not attached to my body after I die. Leave that door open. And put a little thing on my
However, previously I actually have been an organ donor. My driver's license. But simply on a practical level, because I had treatment cancers in my body and a great deal of invasive treatment, I don't feel my organs are very healthy as I did look at the question of keeping a corpse intact in the days right after death. There's certain traditions that feel like for the soul's journey that's beneficial. That was the only thing that took place ever. I had gone for being organ.
It's true, because if you're donating, then you're whisked away.
Yeah, and it's trauma. If the soul isn't moving, people believe, Tibetans call if the soul hasn't already exited, right after death, but they can be ready when you're dying. You have to get up in the hospital and organ to just the minute your last breath. It's a big bodhisattva. Maybe it's more important than one's own soul journey. I think it's very high class.
Well, my mother did, and that was somewhat of a surprise. She stated it all along, and she was the first person I ever knew who even considered it and then my father decided that he wanted to go along with what she had done, and since there wasn't a family plot where he could be side by side with her, he chose to go the same route.
Remember, were they both cremated after that?
Yes. And then their ashes were placed in the little cemetery where the medical facility was.
Right, because they
somehow, I don't know, I think I'd rather be in the ocean on the mountaintop. Places besides timing, I feel like I'm a slow-mo girl, and I just like to see this.
And what happens to what's left? Anybody that may have some attachments to it can do whatever will bring them the most peace. If that means taking them someplace beautiful and brings them peace, that's
Yeah, I feel a little bit mixed. I wish I could feel 100% like you, but I feel a little bit like Jenny's there as well. I have a little kind of phobia around the whole medical profession and the whole legal, all that. I kind of avoid it as much as possible. I never go to a regular doctor or the hospital so far. I've been in a hospital before. So I'm a little bit, my phobias around that come up a little bit when I think about it, which is, maybe hopefully I'll be able to get over it. So far I haven't put it on my driver's license.
It's interesting because if you're in an automobile accident and you die, and on your license is the little heart, then zoom, you're off, they take your heart, your family decides what's going to happen with your body after that. Okay, so what happens then if you've got a death where you have, you're in your home, you've died, you've got the heart on your driver's license? Are they rushing in to get your body? Are they waiting at the door?
The coroner still has to come.
And there are legal things that have to happen.
Right. No, but I mean, so you're surrounded by you're surrounded by your friends. You've died. You know, there wants to be some space there where they're keeping your body. I can't imagine that at that point somebody's coming over to get your organs while you're lying there, right? It's a whole different. It's kind of circumstantial, right, with organ donation?
I think organ donation is more about traumatic death.
Yeah, it's more about if you're dying in a... It's not.
No. You can, because if you have chosen that way, then people can know before you die if it's a slow death, it's not unexpected death. They can know that you have that heart on the thing. So I've never seen it with a person who died at home. I don't know.
I've heard stories where people have actually met the person that they're donating the organs to.
Yes.
I mean, before they die. But if they would have to die in the hospital, to be monitored and to be harvested the minute you're finished.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much like boom,
or put you on a ventilator and
that's
kind of.
I think it's about refrigeration.
Sorry, your heart's been sitting around too long.
My mother donated her body for research.
Oh, medical research.
Which was totally
That's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing. It was a formaldehyde medical facility for a couple of years before she was actually donated to the facility.
And they take care of the funeral and everything.
Because your mother was probably just not in that great a shape to donate.
This is true. This is probably cancer research.
Was a medical as a doctor myself, that's what we did. We had cadavers that had donated their bodies so we could dissect them and learn from them. They had all kinds of diseases.
No, I don't think I'd like to be a cadaver for medical purposes.
Then there was this show.
What if I had forgotten to shave my legs?
Did anybody see the show of the humans that were like skinned and these physicians and stuff that was going through? I wanted to do that. I wanted to get my body. My kids, especially my oldest son, just freaked out. I mean, my family did not like the idea of me donating my body to go on world, skinless with my muscles and nervous system on world tour,
I mean, it is a consideration.
It was quite a consideration.
Yeah.
My family freaked out. I'm like, well, I don't care what you think. It's me, not them. But I did back away from it because it was going to disturb my children to that degree. There's plenty of other people that'll step up for that type of exhibit, and it was quite a learning experience to see these humans and their muscles and their. It was just pretty bizarre.
Wow.
So that is a consideration.
Even to start talking about it, another thing I've never really contemplated before, which is in the most vast cosmos of human reality, someone, the person who might receive a donated organ, and me having had all these experiences, if their organ is going, is it all, we assume it's karmically correct to do everything we can to save it, because that's our cultural view about death as the enemy. Is there ever a time to look at this from the point of view if somebody's heart is dying and maybe it is their appointed time to die? Is there a place to question wonderful Western medicine's advances? I mean, because we get from here, we go to the phone and all this.
That's why I
healing?
That's why I said I wouldn't do it, but if they choose to do it, I would give it forward. But that wouldn't be my choice. No. I would just really think that was my time, and I wouldn't want another kid me or to go through the drug-induced horror of that.
And I have a pretty sister who had leukemia and had to do it. Bone marrow, and that means you wait for somebody else's bone marrow to match it. And we always said we would donate ours, but they weren't a match. And, she's been alive 20-some years since. I mean, so that is really huge.
My thoughts about this are that infinite wisdom is constantly revealing itself. And it is our karma to use that wisdom as it's revealed. This wisdom is coming through doctors, God is there. And it's present for all of us. And it's our karma. When it's there, we get to choose. Of course, that's the choice. And that choice will be for 23 more years, or maybe the match doesn't happen, and they go through all that, and that too is that karma. So does we have a
please direct your attention
Biased by our anti-things.
My prayer is that God is there.
And then what about the energetics and our energy in that?
So I know it's quite a wonderful thing to share.
Stay in your groups, just bring your attention toward that. Well, that was lively. What did you learn? Tell us.
We had a lot of common threads and common thoughts.
Like what? Summarize.
Well, in our group, most people felt that they didn't have a strong enough sense that it was the most purposeful thing to be an organ donor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How many of you felt like that? That it was not the most purposeful thing to be an organ donor? Raise your hands. Mm-hmm. It's getting to be half. It's wonderful. Okay. And were there any other edges or differences that you discovered?
No, it's just very thought-provoking.
It was thought-provoking. It can be provoking in other ways too. Yeah. Very interesting situation. What else? Yeah, let's move that mic around.
Our group, all of us felt like we didn't want emergency intervention at the moment of our death. We all wanted to have that space to be peaceful, mm-hmm. and not be emergency if we had the choice of being able to be quiet.
So in other words, your group examined do not resuscitate directive.
No, we didn't examine that, just as far as an organ donation.
I see.
It means at your death, then your body's suddenly taken off to the medical world, and maybe we want to sit quietly for a while and let our body be at peace. Yeah. When we're done, then to go. And if you sign that little thing in the box, then that gives them, as soon as you stop breathing, they think you're dead, mm-hmm. and your body's whisked off. So. Okay.
And anyone in your group disagree? Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Our group was half and half. A couple of us were pretty sure that we would do it, or wanted to do it. Didn't have much reservation. A couple were conflicted about it. And then one was absolutely sure that they did not want to do that.
Okay. Now, how did you feel listening to the differences?
I felt the judging mind coming in a little bit when the one person that was way different than me. But then I thought, I just wanted to follow the instructions and really try to just hear it. And so now I really have something to think about, because I hadn't considered or studied or researched what happens when you die to the body. I just think of it as I'm leaving the body. Why not use it to help out? Because I'm still living, so I'm thinking like a living person, not someone who's not living. But, so it's a desire to help, but then maybe there's not I just don't know now. Mm-hmm. Now I'm confused, okay?
Good, good. How many of us are confused? Okay, good. Thank you.
I share with the group the only experience I know of someone who did receive an organ transplant, which was our Sufi teacher, Moinuddin, who lived on this island. And because he had a kidney transplant, it extended his life over 20 years. And it was from a young woman. And because he got this young woman's energy, he developed a whole body of teaching from this, from his developing into his feminine self, which then helped to transform our Sufi order in a way. He brought this whole new teaching. So I share with my group the experience of a positivity of an organ transplant, which opened them up a little bit. So and a whole new perspective of what happens when you get an organ transplant, and how it's beneficial to other people, and the benefits of that.
Okay.
But it has another side.
There's
The
always
first kidney had a very angry man, because he became a very angry person for a period of time before he received the second kidney at an 8-year-old.
He got the great blessing. Good. Okay, well that's fascinating. And was he really angry with his kidney? Through the medium of his kidney?
Was he angry with us?
No, through the medium of his kidney did he manifest anger?
Yes.
Fascinating. Well that's juicy, as they say.
All of us in our group, we were pro and questioning, but we had some questions and some things about what happens to the energy of those cells and to the DNA and the karma and all of that. And has any study ever been done on bringing up the energy or actually the energy of both the donor and the receiver so that their energies coincide a bit, or like where they're vibrating from? That would be a fabulous study. It could actually be done.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Lipton, in his book, stated that in the research that he had been involved in, that if donors have similar vibrations, that the take is more likely to be successful.
Wow.
Yeah.
We also wondered about keeping our energy in a certain way going with another human being, another life, and being on the other side, what all that meant.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Ramdas? About when should we choose to have our organs donated and our organ enters into the body of so-and-so? Does our energy continue through the medium of that other life?
No.
He says no. Why not?
You're asking whether the energy, my energy, that would be in, say, my liver, would be enhancing.
Mm-hmm. I can just see us all lined up for R.D.'s liver. Actually, we don't want his liver. We'll take his heart. His liver's been through enough. Okay.
If it was a heart, that's another plasma.
So, if it's a heart, would you want Ram Dass's heart transplanted in you? Raise your hand. What's wrong with you? An old, wise heart like that? No, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I'm old, and my organs are old, and they've served so well. And I would not want to Yeah, they might help the other person. My energies might help the other person. I would wonder how my soul would take to this connection.
Mm-hmm. So then, what someone has suggested here, that we have a kind of like organ transplant hotline where we have a sort of a yenta, is that what that's called? A matchmaker who makes sure that you end up with a person, a recipient, who will be in the same vibratory frequency as you. Okay, so let's, I think this is a wonderful perspective, and we don't know yet. We really don't know.
I'd like to say something.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of this group, it brings one of the issues that I see arising is this issue of, well, who are we? And what part of this, if any, is us? I saw a graphic video of an embalming and worked at a crematory for a couple of days and walked in on an autopsy. And they were all incredible. I saw so much that looked horrendous and barbaric. And yet I felt that those bodies, that soul, that essence had left. But nevertheless, it felt barbaric and didn't seem an appropriate thing to be doing to that as a way of honoring that being and that body. So it's such a wide issue.
So this brings up the question of the sanctity of the body after death. Irregardless if it's ours anymore. It seems to be an issue having to do with values related to, if you will, the sacredness of all things, whether dead or alive. And that our treatment of dead bodies represents a worldview that is disordered, either through the medium of autopsy or potentially organ transplant, embalming, and even including the preservation of the body after death. So, it's kind of allowing ourselves to really drop down into that inquiry. How do you want your body related to after you're dead? Do you want it just thrown onto a metal tray and put into that, I forgot what that thing's called, that sort of cabinet in the mortuary until you're ready for your burial? My own father, who was my best friend, maybe my only friend, no. Just a few days before he died, he gave me orders, and he pulled out of his pajama pocket a card from the National Cremation Society. And for $495, the National Cremation Society comes and picks your body up and cremates it, and then they deliver the cremains to the family. It's a real bargain. So, I don't know what it costs now. He bought his thing when it was $495. So, my father was a parsimonious Protestant. And he loved a good deal. And so, this just seemed to him like the right thing to do. So he's dying, and he whips out of his pocket the National Cremation Society card with the phone number on it, and he said, "Do it." Yeah, I got my orders. And he said, "I don't want to hang around." I said, "Well, you won't be hanging around anyway, but you're talking about your body." He said, "Yeah, just call him up as soon as I'm dead." None of that funny Buddhist business. So he took my fun away. You know, that's something really powerful to ablute the body yourself. It is such an intimate act. It is the last time that you'll be able to really be with the body in that way. And then to sit with the body for some days after death. And to pray for this being's complete liberation as this being is being liberated into the ancestral realm and is now your ancestor. But my father was very clear. And our thing is let the dying person take the lead, besides which I didn't have any experience with the National Cremation Society. So he died. And it was a miracle that I was sitting right there with him and I saw the last breath go out of him. So I got some time to sit with him, and my sister was, "Are you sure he's dead? Are you sure he's dead?" I said, "I'm sure." And of course the hospice angel came and took the pulse. Yes, he was dead. And then after about an hour, I realized, because I heard my father's command in my head, that I had to make the call. So I called up the National Cremation Society, and they arrived 20 minutes later. Talk about efficiency. And in walk these guys in shiny black suits, you know, just like, and pale faces. They'd never seen a day at the beach. They themselves looked like they were moribund. And they came in with a gurney that had red velvet. It was red velvet. This thing kind of unfolded, and I looked at it, I thought, "Oi, my father's going out on red velvet." And they lifted my father up in his sheets, and they dropped him on the gurney, and I am like, oh my God. And they wheel him down the hall, and they begin to go into the elevator, and all of a sudden they tip him up on his head. And then the elevator doors shut. So the last view I had of my father's body was that. There's an extraordinarily profound phase after the death point that allows us to be in a relationship with the body that is respectful. And I've done it for so many people, but not to have done it for my father, to me, is the ultimate irony. Now let me tell you the rest of the story. So the cremains got delivered. Actually, they stayed at the funeral home because my sister and I and her children left. And then it was time for the memorial service. And we're in the lawyer's office with the will being probated. And I turned to Mr. Ishfalding, the lawyer. And I said, I'm Southern. Mr. Ishfalding, we need my father's cremains. And Mr. Ishfalding says, well, I did want to mention this to you. It seems that your stepmother collected his cremains and is refusing to give them to you girls. Oh. Really? So we are not going to put my mother and father's ashes in the Gulf of Mexico, just my mother's ashes? He says, well, I have to tell you, your father did sign a prenup. And in the prenup, he made it clear that anything that belonged to him prior to his marriage belonged to you girls. Now, I think that includes his body. Ms. Lucy, this is Mr. Ishfording. Mr. Halifax is loyal. And the girls are here with me. And Miss Lucy, we know you're an upstanding person in the community of Venice, and you would not want this to get out in the newspaper. We suggest, Miss Lucy, as Mr. Halifax's body belonged to him prior to his marriage to you, that you turn over his cremains. Hi. So disappointing. Well, so what Bodhi is talking about is this is a rite of passage. And whether you have all your organs in there or not is a question that remains highly debatable and is really a heart choice and a hard choice. It's not a clear path. It's a pro-choice issue. You can choose. When Jishu, Bernie's wife, died, her choice was to be harvested. She was clear that this was the most bodhisattvic thing to do, to give your organs away so that others could live. And I was there at the moment of her death, and I just saw her whoosh out. But interestingly enough, they could only harvest her corneas, which gave us a 6-hour envelope to sit with her because of prior illnesses. But if you're clear that this is what compassion teaches you, then your practice and commitment, I think, will carry you over the threshold of difficulty. If there is even one, I don't know. And if your choice is to let the body be undisturbed, blessed be, truly, and to create the circumstances where your choices can be honored. Yes.
Even if you've have the heart on your driver's license, if you've died at home, what happens then to your, the vital organs that need to be handled? Is somebody thinking they should look in your wallet to see if the heart is there on your driver's license and call the hospital right away? I for some reason I was assuming that organ donation was most relevant in like a traumatic, like an accident or something where you're rushed to the hospital. And so do you know the
heart
logistical
attack
difference in that?
So the living will is really important because it has to do with, you have one, right? So why don't you speak about your living will? What it will protect you, how it will protect you, and what you want. And Tom, and what's your name? June. Tom and June. It'd be good to hear from both of you.
I'm a retired nurse of about 40 years. I've gone through the processing of death and dying. I've worked pediatrics like 40 years, and so I know what the problem is. But the only thing is, in death and dying, I have, as I've gotten older, I've just had a birthday. I was 84 years old. So
happy birthday, June.
I am now...
Happy continuation day.
Thank you. I am now feeling more relaxed with the fact of death. At the beginning, handling all these dying children, it was very hard on me. I'd bring it home to the table, my daughter knows, at night, in a conversation. But handling the children, the mothers always come and give you the dying child and want you to do something for it, to help it. And they walk around the hospital floors. And it was something that we let the mother do that because it's helping the mother to be able to, in her heart, retain and give that child up eventually. We've had several mothers who have had their child all day and would not give it up. It's very hard to give up a dying child. And we'd have to violently take it down to the morgue, and they'd go with us. And that's when it broke up. It was really bad. They knew they wouldn't see their daughter or son, what it may be, again. But with my experiences, that I lost my mother when I was 12. I took care of my mother since I was 9. And I've had 40 years of experience in nursing. I live with a family aunt who raised me. So it's kind of like on my own. My sister died before I was born, so I didn't know her. So I didn't have any siblings. I didn't have any parents. And I kind of feel I'm a survivor. I brought myself up with the help of my family, who was very supportive. And as I'm going through processing now, I'm relaxing more to the fact I have fear of dying. I have fear of darkness, of going in a hole. And I don't know if you know anything about the Jewish religion, but when you do, you have to shovel dirt on their coffins. And it includes the family. And I was the first one, I could just see it now, shoveling dirt on my mother's coffin. And I'm starting to kind of relax now more than I did before. I've married a second time. I married a wonderful guy who is about the same age as I am, who's now had about 3 or 4 bypasses. And we kind of support each other. We're both retired. But the fact of, as far as your license is concerned, it doesn't say on my license whether I'm, it says I'm a donor, and it doesn't have a heart on or anything. I'm from Minnesota. No, I'm from Montana.
She used to live in Minnesota one time.
Yes, I did. But no, I had mine on for years, and I think it's more so that people sometimes don't want to have their body torn apart. I've seen mortuary, been in the mortuary, I've seen autopsies, but I feel it's something that I would be giving a gift to somebody of myself. Whether they wanted it, I don't know. If they wanted my gift or not is another question. It's another question for how you feel. But I feel it's the most wonderful thing if you can help somebody else after death.
Thank you so much, June. Tom, do you want to speak about advance directives or living wills? Or you had your hand up? Yeah.
You can. Mine's all set up. I mean, when to unplug and who's in charge of unplugging and all business. Advanced healthcare directives, hospitals. The hospital that's near you has a copy of the paper and everything goes as planned.
Yeah, thank you.
The first thing the urologist told me when I went to see him and he diagnosed with prostate cancer was, get your paper in order and get your butt to surgery pronto and you'll feel better. And once you got an outline, once you've been through it once, then and you know it's mostly done, you can fine tune it any time you want as long as you're alive.
Yeah.
And it'll probably need some fine tuning.
Thanks, Tom.
The best advanced healthcare directive I've seen so far is called the 5 Wishes, which you can find on the internet. and every state has a different view about them. And in answer to Heather's question, if you're a donor and you die at home, hopefully people have, your friends and family have, and your doctor has a copy of your advanced health care directive, in which case they would inform the hospital, which would immediately come and pick up the body.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Bodhi.
As someone who goes in to be with families at the time of transition, I wonder how many of us actually have written down our intention and our desires. You know, if we get a disease and we have time to do it, but to everyone who's been in that situation where the family is grieving and has to make the decision, it is such a gift in health, and have these conversations and really have this and write it down and let everyone close to you know what your intention is. Donor, pull the plug, and even what do you want your service to be? Because when someone's grieving and then they have to make that decision, it is so tough. So the gift that we give when we're healthy is to do this.
Yeah. How many people here have advanced directives? How many people here have designated a durable power of attorney? You're better than a lot of groups, I have to tell you. I think it's tremendous. Because we do not know when and how.
I just wanted to add that I have been a financial planner for 18 years, and my father died without a directive, and it was the hardest decision of my life because my mother was ill, and the doctor looked at me and said, "What should we do?" It's like, I don't know. You know, I can't tell you to let him go. So, yes, it is the greatest gift. And I will tell you that your directive in your own hand doesn't have to be on an official form, but it is the greatest gift to the kids, because I've worked with hospice now for 7 years. And when that time comes, you know, people are in a state of shock. And to have to make that decision for someone, should we pull the plug, should we let them go? I was telling a story that I was visiting with a nurse who said, no dramatic means to keep me alive. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want any of that life support stuff. And then she was having surgery, and she said as they were wheeling me into the surgical area, she said, I sat up on the gurney and yelled to my family, I changed my mind. It's like, do everything you can to keep me alive. But I've also heard that even though we do have the papers and the directives and so forth, that the family can overrule that. So it's very important to talk to someone you trust. And the person who has my power of attorney is not my child.
Yeah.
I would not put them through that. So someone else has it, even if it's just your attorney or your physician or whatever. Have in your heart and your mind what you want done, and don't put that on your kids. But do it now. You know, write out your will today. Write out your directives today. In your own hand, have somebody witness it. It'll hold up in court.
Yeah. So, this is wonderful. This is so rich. I'd like to continue this vein, but also let's talk about interventions. You know, if you have some sense, do you want to be intubated? Do you want to have a feeding tube in the stomach? Intubated is a breathing tube, you know, being breathed mechanically. Do you want to have a feeding tube? Do you want to have parenteral dialysis? Should the kidneys stop? You want food and hydration. Yeah, food and hydration. What's your feeling about that? What do you see would serve you? Now, it's not comfortable to think about these things, but you know, I tell you, it's more uncomfortable suddenly to be in horizontal orbit in a hospital where you're completely powerless and you can't speak maybe, and other people are making decisions against you, and you are not able to communicate, for example.
What does the expression no heroic measures mean, the things you're talking about?
Well, all of the above. But it's very important to be specific. You know, most medical establishments, am I right in this, are ethically bound to resuscitate you and to keep you alive for as long as possible in using any means unless you direct things otherwise. Oi.
My dad had the same kind of stroke that Ram Dass had, and but he had it at 81, and he had a living will that said don't go to any extreme measures to keep him alive, and he didn't have the will to live that Ram Dass had. But what happened to Ram Dass when, at a young age, you had a stroke, and your sheer sense of will brought you back? What if someone's in a coma, but their body still wants to be there? I mean, how can you make that decision for them to pull the plug? I mean, they may come back. It has happened. After 8 years, people have woken up from a coma. So there's a lot we don't know yet. And you went through that incredible journey to come back because you wanted to.
Yeah. I think we all have cases noting where the person hasn't left a record of their wants, and then you have to listen to their wants and then do what you have to do. I think these 5 wishes or whatever are the way to go.
Did you ever not want to be resuscitated? Or did you, when you had the stroke, did you ever want to just continue the voyage into the mystery? Or did that thought not even cross your mind?
When I had the stroke, until later on, I never thought of it as a death thing. It never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind. It was so remote from my waking consciousness. The doctors and nurses and family and friends, they're all serious. I saw the look in their face and serious. That's the one way that it was serious. No, at that time, I was going to live forever.
You're right. You were right.
Yeah. I was going to live forever. And I have no truck with hospitals. And when I went to the hospital, 911 took me to the hospital. I first, the firemen, young firemen, looking down at this old body, I could see what they were seeing. Because then I was old body. And this was all my friends. I didn't even think I had anything at all to worry about.
I've sat with my parents and worked on 5 wishes so that each one of them has their marching orders for us. And they're very different. My father wants us to do everything we possibly can to keep him going. My mother is, let me go. And each one of them gave me this piece of paper and said they didn't trust the other to follow through.
Did you hear that?
And they looked at me and said, we trust that you will follow our directions, which brought up another question. How do we be in support of the person that is dying when other family members, whether it be our own or others that we're supporting, are not in agreement with the individual that is dying? I got fired by the family, not by a patient, for giving information about hospice and physician-assisted suicide to a young 34-year-old woman with ALS.
What do you think? What do you see?
What I choose to do, because I've been in trouble before, is that I followed through with the wishes of the individual that was dying and took the heat. And that was what I've done in the past. My best guess is that in the moment, that is what I would continue to do.
Wonderful. This is the end of our morning session. I want to thank you so much for participating with Ram Dass and me. This afternoon, we want to explore suicide. Hastened death. That's a nice euphemism, hastened death. And then to move into the death point and after death. I want to just express some gratitude here, of course, to Ram Dass and Bodhi and the whole crew, but really to you for the quality of your participation in this process and practice that we've been engaged in. It's just been very wonderful. And I just want to pick you all up and take you to Santa Fe. The beach, too.
Wait a second. Before you take them away, in my illness, once the firemen picked me up, it was all smooth sailing. They've all done it so well that I never even there wasn't even a moment to, is this a wise move? They were all just, everything went according to somebody's plan. And so that I can see that my my living will is very, very important. Very, very important. So, okay.
Let's, I'd like to kind of finish with a chant, Layla. Could we do that?
May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my relations, all my relations. So if you don't know it, I'm going to say the words really quickly. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my relations. Then we're going to sing All Life is Sacred, the mountains and the seas. All life is sacred, the animals and the trees. All my relations. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my all life is sacred. All life is sacred. The mountains and the seas. All life is sacred. All life is sacred. The animals and the trees. All my relations. All my relations. Hey-ya, hey-ya. A little faster. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey-ya. Hey-ya, hey-ya, hey. All my relations. All my relations. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. May I walk in beauty. May I walk in peace. All my relations. All my relations. All life is sacred. All life is sacred. The mountains and the seas. All life is sacred. The animals and the trees. All my relations. All